Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy and I share various backpacking tips and other travel content. So recently I've been reminiscing about travel a lot since I haven't been able to go anywhere, obviously due to the current situation. And I've just been thinking about all the crazy stories I have and thought I would share this one with you guys. I've had quite a few wild stories, I'll link them below, but let's just get into this one right away. So to give you guys a little bit of a backstory, I had just lived in Australia for all of 2018 and I wanted to spend as much time traveling before I came home to Toronto for whatever was left of winter. So I planned on traveling by myself for 3 months, and initially the plan was to go to New Zealand, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka. So that was the original plan and I headed off to New Zealand right away. And once I got to the Philippines, I had everything more planned than I usually would for a solo trip, just because I heard things got booked up pretty quickly. So I had a good route and sense of where I was going throughout the 3 weeks I was going to spend there. When I think back to all the places I've been so far, the Philippines is definitely one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. I would definitely recommend going, but with that being said, it was probably the hardest country to travel on my own. So many things went wrong, starting with just 2 days after I landed, getting in a bad accident there. I can do a whole different story time if you're interested in hearing that. Just leave a comment and I can make that my next video. I also had flights canceled, stayed in a hostel with a rat in it, and that's only just scratching the surface. So let's get into the good stuff. I guess you could say I met my stalker when I got to Boracay, which is an island in the Philippines. And I was just really happy to get there. Getting anywhere in the Philippines takes a long time because there's so many different ferries you have to take and then another tuk-tuk to get you to your hostel. So by the time I got there, I was just really happy to lay down, put my stuff on the ground. I had made friends really quickly, as I usually do in hostels. And these 2 girls in my room were from Sweden. They were really sweet. So I started talking to them. And we went to like the common area for these like communal dinners that they had a few times a week at the hostel we stayed at. So the second day that I was there, I had to switch hostel rooms and I ended up staying with a girl that was from Canada and we got along really well. So we started hanging out and we made our way down to the communal area and everyone was drinking, getting along and meeting new people. And that's where I met my stalker, or we'll just call him John. I honestly don't even remember his name anymore, but we'll just call him John for the sake of the story. So just to give you a little picture of what he looked like, he was definitely in his 40s at least, had graying hair, maybe he was even in his 50s, I don't really know. He was white, tall, looked pretty average, but had like a bit of a creepy vibe to him right off the bat. When I met him, I'm always a little bit skeptical when people are middle-aged or older staying at hostels. I'm a little bit confused as to why they're there. Not that you can't be older and stay at a hostel, but I just find it strange, especially when it's more of a party hostel and they're there alone. It just seems like they're like a predator, or like automatically that's where my head goes. So I'd run into John here and there throughout the week. I'd see him at the beach with other people we met. We all went out to get like drinks one night and like drink near the beach, and he started buying the Canadian girl and I some drinks, and I was kind of like on edge about it. I didn't drink too much because I just got this like bad feeling about him. Nothing happened that night, luckily, everything was fine, and the next day we ended up seeing him at the beach. So when we saw him again at the beach, we were all kind of talking about like our plans and where we were heading next, because a lot of people don't really know where they're going, like what island they're gonna head to after that. So I just explained which island I was going to, and he asked me when my flight was, and not really thinking much of it, I told him around what time it was the next day. So as we're talking and I'm having a different conversation, he actually ends up booking the same flight I'm on. And it wasn't that unusual because a lot of people kind of do that when they're traveling, but it got weird when he asked me what hostel I was staying at, and at that point I was like, I told him the hostel name, but I made sure that he knew it was a hostel that got booked up really quickly and I already booked it far in advance, so there's no way he'd be able to get a room there. and I suggested other hostels I heard of so that he wouldn't be in the same one as me. So then I find out that he somehow managed to get a room in the same hostel. He had emailed them and gotten a private room for himself, and I was supposed to be staying in a dorm room. So at that point, he kind of brings it upon himself to decide to go together the next morning for the flight, which, I mean, it wasn't that unusual because people do that when you're traveling by yourself and you meet someone taking the same flight. You just decide to go to the airport together. So I also had like a really, really bad injury, so it was like good that he was there to help me with my bags because I had a bunch of stuff with me from Australia. So we ended up, that night before, I was a little bit concerned about the fact that I was going to be going with him at 4 a.m. to go take a tuk-tuk to the ferry, and then another tuk-tuk to the airport. Okay, sorry, my card was full, so I had to just delete a bunch of stuff. If you're wondering why everything is a little bit off. Don't even really remember where I left off, but anyways, we were going to the airport at 4 a.m. So I messaged my mom his Facebook like profile, a screenshot of it, everything I knew about this guy, just all the details I had, because I just had like a weird feeling, but there was really no way of getting out of it unless I straight up just told him I felt uncomfortable. And at that point I was like, I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to make him feel bad when he's like not doing anything wrong. So we end up going, it's fine, we get to the flight. And once we land, we go to check in the hostel. And after I check in to my dorm room, I'm overhearing his conversation with the reception lady, and she explains to him that he's in the same room as me. And I'm like, what? Like, okay. So at this point, I'm a little bit creeped out. Like, how did he manage to like finesse his way into the same room as me when it's a pretty big hostel? They were booked up, and he had gotten a dorm room or a private room. So we end up getting into our room, we put our stuff down, we go get food. And when I come back, I'm like, I need to get away from this guy, I need to meet new people. So at that point, more people had come back from being out from the day. And I go up to the rooftop to try to make some new friends, and I talk to a bunch of girls, they're super nice. And I explain to them the whole situation and how creeped out I am by this guy. So they kind of take me under their wing, they're really friendly, and I spent a few days doing some like island hopping tours with them, which was like, a lot of fun. And that was kind of the end of it, or so I thought. So I decided to go from Coron, which was the island I landed at, to El Nido, and from there I took a ferry. And once I got there, I was reunited with the Swedish girls I had met previously, and we had such a good time. We were doing like, again, island hopping and beaches every day. And at this point I was like, okay, we're good, not even thinking about John at all. And then one day I come back from the beach and John is checking in to the same hostel I'm at again. And he had no idea I was going to Coron, like, or so I thought at this point. I had not talked to him at all since, didn't tell him where I was going. So I was like, okay, maybe it's a coincidence because I just have him on Facebook. I haven't posted anything on Facebook, so there's no way he would have known I was here. But then I'm like, wait a second, like, he might have Instagram. So I check my Instagram and I see from about a week ago, I have a new follower, and I click on his profile and sure enough, it's him. So then I start to panic. I'm not really one to freak out that much about these sort of things, but the fact that he followed me from Boracay to Coron and Coron to El Nido was just like insane to me that happened, because there's so many islands in the Philippines that there's not really like a standard route that people do. Like, it would be more common to have that happen in Vietnam, where you're going like from north to south or south to north. But in the Philippines, it's completely different. It's not like people go in a certain way around the country. So I see that he's viewed all my stories where I'm sharing my location. He knows where I am. And I start to freak out, and I go tell the girls that I know at this point and I can trust. And we go talk to the receptionist and tell them that, and I ask what room he was in, and they tell him he's in the same room I'm in. So at this point, I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do? I tell them the entire story and they're like, don't worry, we'll move you into a different room. So that made me feel a lot more comfortable, but still it was just like I had to avoid him the entire time because I didn't want to run into him. Luckily, some of the guys I met previously as well were really nice really nice and friendly, and they were like, don't worry, like we'll keep an eye out for you and make sure he doesn't do anything and that you're okay. And I was keeping my parents up to date the entire time as well. Not trying to scare them or anything, but I just wanted them to know in case something happened. So that's basically the story of how my stalker followed me around 3 different islands in the Philippines. Didn't think I'd ever be sharing this sort of story. I don't want to discourage people from traveling by themselves, because while this sort of thing can happen and worse, and I'm really lucky that nothing worse happened, I think that people just need to be aware of like what can go wrong and be like accurate, like be prepared for the worst and just on guard a little bit more than you would at home. I probably could have handled the situation a lot better, but when you're in it, it doesn't, like, you don't really know how you're going to react in these types of situations. So I just did my best. Like, I stayed in contact with friends and family. I made friends that I knew I could trust because like they were good groups of girls around my age and guys as well. And that made me feel a lot more safe. But there were also a lot of different things I did throughout the time I was traveling by myself to stay safe. I have a blog post on solo female travel safety, and I also have a 3-week Philippines itinerary on my blog too. So I can leave those in the description box below in case you want to check them out. So that's it. Subscribe to my channel for more story times, vlogs coming up soon, and helpful budget hacks for travel. See you in the next one, and travel safe, folks.